Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pro Wrestling Inside and Out. The Wrestling War of Atlanta continues, and we're looking at part 4. If you've not watched parts 1, 2, and 3, look at the video down below, right there next to Rodney, and you can watch 1, 2, and 3. But, Jack, let's pick up part 4, the Wrestling War of Atlanta.
January 23rd, 1973, Atlanta, Georgia, at the Municipal Auditorium. Ann Gunkel, promoter for All South Wrestling Alliance. Crusher Carlson versus The Champ. Pedro Godet versus Bobby Starr. Wayne Cowan and Juan Caruso versus Jesse James and Kubla Khan. Oki Shakina versus The Avenger. Bill Bowman and Joe Turner versus Ted Oates and Tommy Sigler. Dick Steinborn versus Guillotine Gordon. Ray Candy and Bearcat Wilkerson versus the Hollywood Blondes, Jerry Brown and Buddy Roberts. A no disqualification match, El Mongo versus Ox Baker. For the Georgia heavyweight title, Assassin number 2 versus Rock Hunter ended in a no contest with Assassin number 2 retaining the title. Notes: Bill McMahon was credited as being a referee for this card. Assassin number 2 had been the reigning Georgia heavyweight champion since he faced Roberto Soto on January 9th, 1973 in Atlanta. Mongo participated in an autograph session for fans. The program for this card is the first we have where Ann Gunkel has her own column and billed as Mrs. Ray Gunkel, and also signs off that way. The staff credits have changed since the last mention, with Tim Geohagen now being referenced as timekeeper. Sponsors listed were Sears, Riches, Jim Sal's, Trust Company of Georgia, Elner Newsstand, and Mothers on the Strip. It was announced that Argentina Apollo would be wrestling in Atlanta on January 30th, 1973. There was an article in the program on Apollo talking about his budding interest in painting, saying he hoped to retire from wrestling and make a career as an artist.
I have to say this real quick. Some great sponsors for Ann Gunkel. I mean, look at that. Sears, Riches, Jim Sal. I mean, that's a great lineup of sponsors.
There's a whole joke about Mothers on the Strip, but I'm going to skip that.
I thought that too. Look back those programs or those magazines back then. You'll see that.
It was a more innocent age.
All right, Rod.
We come up to January 23rd, 1973, Tuesday at the Macon Coliseum. Macon, Georgia. Fred Ward was promoter for Georgia Championship Wrestling. It was Roy Lee Welch versus Bob Orton Jr. It was the women's match. Susan Green against Peggy Patterson. Jack Evans against Pedro Colombo. Bob Armstrong and Koa Tiki against Tank Morgan and Hiro Matsuda. The Georgia Tag Team Championship. No time limit, no disqualification. Eddie and Mike Graham against Sputnik and Rocket Monroe for the title. Note the Grahams had been the reigning Georgia Tag Team Champions since they faced the Monroes in a tournament final on December 29th, 1972 in Atlanta.
And you're kind of seeing the difference between the cards for Ann Gunkel and Georgia Championship Wrestling. On January 26, 1973, Atlanta, Georgia, the Atlanta Municipal Auditorium, Georgia Championship Wrestling, Daryl Cochran versus Koa Tiki. Women's tag team match, Susan Green and Debbie Johnson against Tony Rose and Paula Kay. Pantra and Els. Well, these two individuals.
Pantera Negra.
All right. El
Sedelico.
Man, and I didn't know there's going to be hard words in this. Against Bob Armstrong and Pat O'Brien, Bill Watts against Tank Morgan, Eddie Graham and Mike Graham against Butcher Brannigan, and is that Bengali?
Yes.
The Zodiac against Bill Drummo, Mr. Wrestling 1 and 2 against Sputnik Monroe and Rocky Monroe, Freddie Blassie against Norvell Alston, Jack Crawford managed Alston upon the return of Mr. Wrestling, now known as Wrestling 1. Crawford was noted as claiming that he believed him to be Tim Woods.
January 27th, 1973, which was a Saturday, Atlanta, Georgia, WTCG Studios, All South Wrestling, Bearcat Wilkerson versus Bill Bowman, Ted Oates versus Juan Caruso, Ray Candy versus Joe Turner. And then on January 27th, 1973, also on Saturday, second hour taping, the Zodiac versus Bill Dromo, Eddie Graham versus Bengali, Norvell Austin versus Bob Orton Jr. Mr. Wrestling's 1 and 2 defeated Johnny Eagle and Tank Morgan. And then on Sunday, the 28th, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution published a story written by Phil Garner, who exposed much of the behind-the-scenes events of the promotional war between Georgia Championship Wrestling and All South Wrestling Alliance.
You know, this right here shows that All South Wrestling either did their show first at the WTCG studios and then followed by Georgia Championship Wrestling. Or it could have been the other way around, but they did the shows both on Saturday mornings, used the same exact ring. I'm guessing they just changed the skirtings and stuff around the ring. Very interesting time in professional wrestling because, they had to, all these wrestlers had to see each other as they were passing through some crazy stuff that was going on. I don't know that would happen today, for sure. All right, Rod.
Come up on January 30th, 1973, Tuesday, Atlanta, Georgia, Atlanta Municipal Auditorium for All South Wrestling Alliance. Jesse James versus Wayne Cowan. Ted Oates versus the champ. That was not me, by the way. Bobby Starr versus Juan Caruso. Bearcat Wilkerson against Oki Shikina. Pedro Godoy versus Kubla Khan. Randy Curtis and the Avenger versus Bill Bowman, which is a good friend of Dad, and Joe Turner. Tommy Sigler against Crusher Carlson in the Georgia Tag Team Championship match. Dickie Steinborn and Argentine Apollo against Ox Baker and Guillotine Gordon. Oh, I get to continue. Sorry about that. Georgia Brass. Sorry about that. Thought it was.
I thought he fell asleep for a minute. I wasn't for sure.
No.
He let the champ thing go to his head.
It happens. It happens. Georgia Brass Knuckles title match. No disqualification. No time limit. Rock Hunter versus Assassin 2 for the title. Ray Candy against Goliath. Managed by Ox Baker. The Battle of the Giants. Steinborn and Apollo had been signed to. Had been the reigning Georgia Tag Team Champions since they defeated Ox Baker and Skander Akbar on October 20th, 1972 in Atlanta. And although they earned recognition while wrestling for Georgia Championship Wrestling Promotions, Gunkel recognized them as such when they agreed to move to All South Wrestling Alliance. The origin of the Georgia Brass Knucks title was unclear to us at the time, and how Hunter came to be recognized as such. The last references we have shows Ray Gunkel being billed as the Georgia Championship, billed such for the Georgia Championship Wrestling at the time of his death on August the 1st, 1972, having defeated Ox Baker for the title on June 30th, 1972. Curtis had been billed as the son of Jack Curtis. It was announced that Gunkel was negotiating with Alfred Hayes for future dates in Atlanta. The program for this card featured a piece on Carlson, noting that he had served in World War II and was a versatile linguist of 8 different languages, and was and also become an actor, having appeared in multiple films and TV series, adding to it that he had planned to transition towards acting more in the future. And apparently he was looking forward to working later in life with the WWE.
We're going to have to look this guy up and see if he actually was in films. This Carlson guy. Because I don't know. And I don't think Lord Alfred Hayes ever showed up for Ann Gunkel. I could be wrong. We may see him on future episodes, but I don't think he did. Now we go to Georgia Championship Wrestling in February 2nd, 1973 at the Atlanta Municipal Auditorium. Johnny Eagle versus Tank Morgan, Pat O'Brien, and Bob Orton Jr. in Wrestling 2 against Jack Evans, Butcher Brannigan, and Bengali. Women's match, Lily Thomas against Donna Christianello. Chata Yokuchi. Kucha?
Yokuchi.
And
I'm glad better you than me. I'm just telling you.
Versus Pantera Negra and El Sidalico. You're welcome.
Oh. Bob Armstrong and Jerry Oates against Sputnik and Rocket Monroe. Bill Drummond against Hans Smith. Bobby Shane against Koa Tiki. The Zodiac versus Eddie Graham. Handicap tag team match. Bill Watts and Freddie Blassie defeated Jack Crawford, Norville Austin, and Tarzan Tyler. There's how'd you say his name, Jack?
Yokuchi.
Yokuchi and Fuji were being billed as North American Tag Team Champions. The origin of the North American Tag Team titles was unclear, but JC Dykes managed them. Crawford managed Austin and Tyler. Following the match between Austin and Tyler, Watts and Blassie, Crawford and Austin had words in the middle of the ring. Tippers flared, and Crawford slapped Austin before Tyler helped calm matters, and the trio returned to the dressing room. Beauregard escorted Bobby Shane to the ring. It was announced that Gene Kiniski would be wrestling in Atlanta on February 9th, 1973, and that Dory Funk Jr. would be in Atlanta soon as well.
February 3rd, 1973, which was a Saturday, Atlanta, Georgia, WTCG Studios for All South Wrestling Alliance. Pedro Godoy versus Jesse James, Dick Sanborn, and Tommy Siegler, the champ, and versus Bobby Starr. Kind of run together, so I may not have that right. February 3rd, 1973, Saturday, Atlanta, Georgia, again. Same day, I guess the second taping. Sputnik Monroe and Rocket Monroe versus Pantera Negro and El Sidalico. Bill Drummond versus Tank Morgan. Handicap match, Tarzan Tyler over Jim McKinney and Pedro Colombo. Jack Crawford managed Austin and Tyler. The match between Tyler, McKinney, and Colombo match was initially a tag match that included Austin teaming with Tyler. However, Austin refused to enter the ring and Crawford slapped him. Once the mayhem had calmed, Austin returned to join Capital, ripping up the management contract between them. Now, I would point out that those Mexican performers that were there, those were the first intergender wrestling matches because they had wrestled women on some of the previous cards. And I had heard about this. This is the first time I've seen, what the actual matches were.
Very interesting. And it's so interesting. I said it before, very interesting that All South Wrestling would tape and then Georgia Championship Wrestling would tape. Now I'm not for sure which way they did this, but that was very weird of how they did that and how they had to use the same ring. I don't think they had time to take the rings down. They had to use
no way.
Just crazy stuff that time. Well, this is the War of Atlanta Part 4. We will be talking more about it. We'll look at Part 5, but it's very interesting to see the matches that Ann Gunkel had and the matches that Georgia Championship Wrestling had. Mostly, I know more. I guess for years later, the fans in Georgia didn't. They didn't really know who Mike Graham and Eddie Graham was. They were new to the area, and all those wrestlers at All South, everybody knew that was who was wrestling for the organization for many years. So very interesting look at wrestling. All right, our Insider Nation, I think we'll go see what they've got to say, and then we will move on and don't forget, we will be doing a whole series on the Wrestling War of Atlanta. I don't know what this. He said, "Hello, Rodney. Did you say something about throwing shoes?"
Yes, we did in the previous show earlier, and you got to catch it with the top 100. We talked about Kurt Von Hess being the superstar in Valdosta, Georgia. I think he was the superstar every time in Valdosta, Georgia. Well, he grabbed the microphone and he had that German accent, and the people caught wind of it and they started throwing shoes. And I mean, shoes came from everywhere. Doug Summers got him a pair of flip-flops.
Yeah, he walked by and looked down and saw him a pair, and he's, oh, here we go, and put them in his bag.
People was leaving the building with no shoes on.
By the way, the Valdosta, it was the Mathis Civic Center, and it was on the stage, and nobody was sitting on the stage. I don't remember anybody sitting on the stage, no. So people were throwing things. It was Kurt was on the end of the deal with the mic, and he was just he was doing German right there.
Sure. Jacques Rougeau was with us going back, and me and Brent says, well, That was Kirk Von Hess being a superstar. I said, no, it wasn't. Of course, John said, yeah, Ronnie, nobody knew that. He picked up the, let me tell you something.
I'll never forget that. That'll be a memory I hope that I never forget, because it was just funny. It was a funny situation. Valdosta, a great wrestling town, by the way. I
Yes,
always did with. Aaron is with us. Aaron, how are you doing? Michael Barr also with us as well. Wayne Cowan. Yes, it would be. He would later become Dutch Mantel. Roberto Soto is a man that didn't age. He pretty well didn't, did he? Always looked the same. I seen a photograph of him not long ago, and he almost looked exactly the same. Michael Barr, was there a team called the PYT? Yes, the Pretty Young Things. Coco, where Norvell Austin.
Which, by the way, Norvell Austin surfaced the other day. He's in a nursing home now. But there was a friend of mine on my friends list, and I can't remember who it was, went to see him and got a whole bunch of pictures signed in which he's selling off. I'll try to put that link up if I can find it again. But I did tell him to mention Norvell. We'd love to get him on the show.
Yes. Yeah.
So he's going to talk to him, see what he can do.
Love Norvell Austin. He was always a great guy. We had a good time with him. Good evening, guys, from Boxing Guy Brian. Brian, the writer, co-author of The Wrestler's Wrestler. If you've not gotten that, go to Amazon.
The illustrious Brian Young.
Michael Barr. For those of you who, it's September 21st, 2021. You can go back and watch our video. It's the Dirty Dutch Mantel. He is number 79. We talk about Roy Welch. We talk about Bill Watts. We talk about Bill Ash. Many different wrestlers on our top 100 series. But Roy Welch does not get mentioned much anymore, and that is true. He does not get mentioned, and I always liked his wrestling ability as well. Yep. Always enjoyed him having people. I always say that they were Ronald Reagan, a couple other guys always called in and say that he was the king of professional wrestling. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I also believe the Queen called and made sure that everybody knew that Roy Welch was the king of wrestling. Jack, my son wants to know when you wrestled in Dothan, Alabama.
Dothan is the only major market in the state of Alabama that I never wrestled in. Now, I wrestled in Enterprise. I wrestled, several towns around in there, Panama City, several other places in that Florida Panhandle area. Never got to go to Dothan. Passed through there lots of times.
Let's see. Michael Barr, Flash Sputnik, and Rock and Roll way back in the day. Sputnik was a character, and it would not have been a Flash or a Rocket if it wasn't for Sputnik Monroe.
Trailblazer when it comes to racial equality, also.
Yes. Jerry Oates was a part of that war too. Yes, he was. Hey, Brent, what did you mean when you mentioned you guys are going to stop promoting the monthly support? We are not. We're going to try to figure a different way of the support. We don't know which way we're going to do. You can still support Pro Wrestling Inside and Out. It will still be there, but we're going to try to find a different way to go about the support. You always have to make some changes, and and soon we'll be adding different merchandise. We're going to be doing that as well. We don't know what yet. But we are. It's always a changing situation. You always have to do some changing, and but that will always be there. You can always support on there. We're just going to find a different way to do so.
Yep. You could possibly see my mug on a mug.
That's true. But
we tried that before, and I think I'm the only one that bought it.
Well, we're going to try some new things, and it's just it's a trial and error thing to try to see if not everybody is going to respond to a $2.99 a month. some people may say, listen, I may pay you $2.99 every so often. I'm not going to pay you every month. And then there's some people that love to support us every month, and we do appreciate it. We're just going to try a different way of giving people different options of what they want, because we've had to have people say, well, I'll pay you $2.99, but I can't do it every month. So we've got to figure out a way for everybody to be able to support us, and we just got to figure out how we're going to do that. Michael Barr, Rodney, you have been painting with Brent's paint there. Some silence was going on. Has anyone ever heard Oxford?
Yeah, that with an answer.
Yes. Oxbaker was tremendous in the ring. Not in the ring, on the mic. Not too good on the ring, but he was great in the mic.
He was great in the ring too. He was just a tremendously nice man to me.
Yeah. Boxing guy Brian, I love it when you guys give Brent the hard names.
Hey, just FYI, Brian, he's the one that writes all that stuff up.
Yes, I am. I'll remember that, and I'll make sure they get the hard names from now on. I'll make sure that gets out. I try to I've kind of got where Jack starts it, and then Rodney does, and I'll do one. Sometimes I don't do any of them, and I'll try to throw some photographs, but it's so hard to find photographs from that time period. Very little is around for that time period. You can find a couple of newspaper ads, but let's see. I don't know what that is. Gene Kaniski. There's a name that has not been heard in a few years. One of the greats. Let's see. What's that? Say my girlfriend's last name, Brent. It's Smigaliski. Smigaliski. I mean, is that how you say that?
This is a clear point in time where you just refer to her as yes, dear.
That's
right. Now you know why we call everybody Honey and Sweetie down here.
That's right. It's much easier for us. And Gogo couldn't compete with the heavy hitters in NWA now because they knew if they wrestled for her, they would get blackballed and they wouldn't get to wrestle. So
still though, we look at these cards and I'm thinking I'd love to have seen those. Now, if they were going head to head on the same night in the same town, I would have went to the NWA shows. But I sure would have liked to have seen those Hand Gunkel shows too. I wish that they had figured out a way to split up and run far separate from each other. That is what it is.
Michael Barr said, was Tarzan Tyler the wrestling pro? No, he was not a wrestling pro. Or was Tarzan Baxter? It was not. Was it Tarzan Baxter? It was Leon Baxter, right?
Leon.
He might have wrestled as Tarzan Baxter.
Yeah, he did. I think early in his career.
Tarzan
was a popular name back then.
This is true. Were the rats really that big and bad? Yes. They weren't rats. They were gophers. And they didn't even care. They'd get out there and actually clap with the people and everything when somebody was.
Honestly, the first time I went, I thought there was a cat had run across my foot.
The things were huge in that building. They were absolutely huge. It's just, I've never, bigger some kids in there. I think they really closed it down because they started biting people. That's how they did not care about people in that building.
Now it seems like Georgia State bought the lobby and they tore the arena part down, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe that's right.
That's Dandy Jack Crawford was a main manager at the time. El Mongo and Tarzan Tyler. A match on TV was Mongo chopping Tyler in a tag team, turning Mongo face, and drew a ton of money in the process of doing that. The match was against the Torres brothers, Alberto and Ramon. Rick Brooks, which Dad loved them, by the way. He said they were tremendous. Hans Smith makes short work of Spucknick Moreau in the late 60s in Detroit territory. Time restrictions, I guess. Possibly. Yes, everyone support Pro Wrestling is the best wrestling show out there. Thank you so much. And Michael Barr, $2.99 is reasonable, and it is reasonable, but for some reason it's not reasonable for everyone. Oh, why?
That's I go to Cheap Look, ProWrestlingTees.com. You can get our Pro Wrestling Inside and Out T-shirts there. But I go there and I try to support, one of the indie guys. I try to at least once a month. I'm not able to afford that every month. So I get, that's just sometimes you don't have money, and that's why we're looking for different options.
Yeah, was always different options and different ways to, always grow our Pro Wrestling Inside Out, because we're only going to make it bigger, and we got to have support to do that with cameras, and if we start going live to a lot of places, we're going to have to invest into a thing that will move from one. If for some reason we've got Sprint, it'll move it to the AT&T, and then once AT&T doesn't pick up, it'll move it back to Sprint, and that costs money. And if we do stuff live a lot on like we're going to do in Dalton, Georgia on Thursday, we're going to have that to move forward. So, the Hollywood Blondes of All South Wrestling Alliance, Michael Barr. So the Rats could have Yes, they could have. They could have took you down. They could have done a toe hold or anything on you at any moment. Those were huge. And they had been there for years. And it wasn't like they had just moved in. They had been there for years because Moondog Maine knocked one out, put it in our father's bag. Now, Moondog Maine might have thought it was dead, but it wasn't. It woke up. It woke up inside our father's bag, and he did not know what it was, but he started putting the boots to it because he just knew something was in there. He put the boots to it, and I don't even think he killed it. I think he finally just had to let it go. That's how big them things were.
Hey, Brian, he spelled it out so you can pronounce it. Smigelski. Smig.
You say that. I say yes, dear.
My precious. That's what I'm thinking about. Smingle. I'm thinking about Smingle when I'm there. My precious.
Don't tell her we said that.
No.
We don't want you barred.
I will keep paying if that's what it takes. I don't mind. I enjoy it. Thank you so much, Michael. We certainly do appreciate it. We do appreciate all the support we get, and but we just want to give some options, some merchandise that maybe recreate some posters and things like that to give people something they can hang up and she's listening. She's listening. She just likes to listen to the country boys. That's just all she wants to do. Or what he calls rednecks. I think it was rednecks.
We'll take any of that.
Yeah, we don't mind either one of those, by the way. It's very hard to insult us. We've been in the wrestling business a long time. For a long time. You have to do a lot to insult us for us, because we have been called everything under the book just by Ronnie West. Just by Ronnie West. That's and by many wrestlers. So we're used to it. That's right. All right, guys. We appreciate everybody. We appreciate it, and we will be back here next week. We're going to talk Harley Race on Monday. We're going to talk about his start in the wrestling business, and as he wrestles as Jack Long in Tennessee. We'll talk a little bit about that. And boxing guy Brian said she's the one who named me Wookie Luchador.
That's right.
But we'll talk about Harley Race.
Keep that woman.
That's right. Thank y'all so much. And thank you so much for guys. Let's get the monkeys. Is the monkeys available to do an interview?
Got one of them on my Facebook. I'll check with them.
If they are, yes. Monkey Mania could still be running wild. But thank y'all so much. We certainly do appreciate it. Next week we'll talk Harley Race, and I'm not for sure what else we're going to talk about yet. We're working on that as well. It's always the week before, so very rarely can I get ahead of myself. I was 3 weeks ahead, but then something happened, and that would have been COVID, and then for some reason I didn't work on a lot of stuff during that time. Thank y'all so much, Jack. Thank you, Rodney, and we'll see everybody next week right here on Pro Wrestling Inside Now.